Let's just say it. Hollywood has done it again. They've taken a franchise that no one was really asking to be resurrected, slapped Jack Black's face on it, and decided, hey, let's make a giant snake movie. But what if it wasn't scary, thrilling, or even remotely like the movies that made people love it in the first place? That's right. The Anaconda franchise is back. And this time, it looks less like a high-stakes jungle horror adventure and more like a parody trailer someone accidentally greenlit after a night of tequila shots. Before we get into the future disaster, let's rewind, because the story of Anaconda is actually way juicier than people remember. The first movie was a cult sensation. The second one, against all odds, wasn't half bad. Then the rest? Whew, we'll get there. But you need the full messy picture to understand why this Jack Black reboot is already raising red flags. So, back to 1997, the first Anaconda drops. What was the plot? Pretty straightforward, and honestly, that was its secret weapon. A documentary film crew heads into the Amazon rainforest to capture footage of a lost tribe. You've got Jennifer Lopez as Terry Flores, the determined director. Ice Cube as Danny, her right-hand cameraman who basically reacts to giant snakes the way most of us react to bad Wi-Fi. Then you've got Eric Stoltz as her nerdy love interest, who spends half the movie in a coma after a freak wasp-in-the-throat situation. Which, by the way, was a very creative way for the writers to bench a character they didn't know what to do with. And then comes the real star, Jon Voight as Paul Cerrone. He's this shady Paraguayan snake hunter with an accent that can only be described as geography unknown. He cons his way onto their boat, and surprise, surprise, he doesn't care about lost tribes. He cares about catching the biggest, baddest anaconda in the Amazon. And not only catching it, he wants to profit off it. Classic greedy villain vibes. From there, chaos. The crew gets stranded. The jungle closes in. People start dropping like flies. One by one, they get crushed, swallowed or otherwise traumatized by this giant CGI snake. And the effects? For 1997, not bad. Sure, by today's standards, some of it looks rough, but back then, audiences were terrified. There's the scene where Owen Wilson gets squeezed and then eaten alive. Horrifying. There's Carrie Woorer running for her life in the mud. And of course, the crown jewel, Jon Voight being regurgitated by the snake, slime-covered mud, and somehow still alive long enough to wink before finally dying. It's camp, it's terrifying, it's ridiculous. And it's exactly why the first Anaconda is still iconic. Fast forward to 2004. The studio decides, hey, people like giant snakes, let's do it again. But instead of Jennifer Lopez and Ice Cube, we get a whole new cast in Anacondas. The Hunt for the Blood Orchid. Now, this one's plot is slightly more ambitious. A group of scientists heads into Borneo looking for a rare flower called the Blood Orchid. Why? Because it has magical anti-aging properties that could extend human life. Translation: rich people will pay big money for it. So the crew, a mix of scientists, adventurers, and general snake food, sails into the jungle. But surprise, the blood orchid blooms during snake mating season. That means the already huge snakes are in full-on growth spurt mode, juiced up and angrier than ever. It's basically spring break for giant reptiles. And here's the clever part. The movie actually tried to explain the freakish size of these snakes. The blood orchid wasn't just some magical MacGuffin for humans. It was part of the snake's food chain. They ate the animals that ate the orchids, which meant the snakes lived longer, grew far beyond nature's limits, and became these unstoppable, oversized predators. For once, a creature feature gave a semi-scientific reason for its monster, and that made the threat even scarier. From there, it's a bloodbath. The snakes stalk the crew through swamps, caves, and waterfalls. There are betrayals, cowardly villains, a boat captain who knows more than he lets on, and plenty of snake attacks. What worked about this one is that it didn't just try to copy-paste the first movie. It upped the stakes with this orchid storyline, gave the snakes a reason to be extra terrifying, and kept the tension going. Sure, the acting wasn't Oscar-worthy, but the tone was right. It was still adventure meets horror, and the danger felt real. By the end, you actually cared who made it out alive. even if half the characters existed just to get chewed. Then came the dark times. Anaconda 3 Offspring. This is where the franchise went full sci-fi original movie energy. The plot? A greedy billionaire funds genetic experiments on anacondas, because of course he does. And surprise, they escape. The snakes looked about as realistic as a screensaver, and the cast looked like they were all there to pay off a mortgage. The only thing scary was how cheap it felt. And it somehow got worse with Anaconda 4, Trail of Blood, which was basically the same plot reheated, only with even less budget and more nonsense. The snakes were completely CGI, none of it believable, and the thrills were non-existent. And then, to really hammer the nail in the coffin, the franchise crossed over with Lake Placid. Because when two washed-up monster franchises are drowning, why not tie them together like bricks and sink faster? Lake Placid versus Anaconda was exactly what it sounds like. Giant crocodiles meet giant snakes. A government experiment goes wrong. Shocking, I know. And suddenly, we've got genetically altered anacondas running loose in the same swamp, where mutant crocodiles have been terrorizing people for years. Scientists, mercenaries, and random locals all get stuck in the middle. The crocs and snakes fight each other, people get eaten left and right, and not a single moment feels like it was meant to be taken seriously. It was basically a Sci-Fi Channel drinking game in movie form. Spot the bad CGI, laugh at the plot holes, and wait for the crossover title card to pop up so you remember what you're watching. If the original Anaconda was a legitimate thriller, this one was its messy, drunken cousin crashing the family reunion. That brings us to today, the reboot, or reimagining, which is what studios say when they don't want to admit they're just milking nostalgia. This time, starring Jack Black. And again, I love Jack Black. He's hilarious, he's charismatic, and he can absolutely carry a comedy. But Anaconda is not supposed to be a comedy. Best friends Griff and Doug have always dreamed of remaking their all-time favorite movie, Anaconda. When a midlife crisis pushes them to finally go for it, they assemble a crew and head deep into the jungles of the Amazon to start filming. However, life soon imitates art when a gigantic anaconda with a thirst for blood starts hunting them down. The original Anaconda worked because it was suspenseful. The second worked because it treated the snakes like actual threats. But now, it looks like they're about to turn it into a slapstick jungle romp where the giant snake is just a setup for punchlines. That's not Anaconda. That's Jumanji with scales. The marketing will trick you, though. They'll splash the Anaconda name across the poster, show some vaguely menacing CGI snake in the trailer, and hope nostalgia does the rest. But what we'll probably get is a movie where the snake is just a joke. The characters are parodies. And the tension is gone. It's the same mistake studios always make when they don't understand why people loved the original. We didn't watch Anaconda because we wanted to laugh. We watched because we wanted to see glamorous actors sweating in the jungle, fighting for their lives against a monster that actually scared us. Now, could I be wrong? Sure. Maybe Jack Black will shock us all and play it serious. Maybe the movie will pull off some magical balance between humor and horror that reinvents the franchise in a fresh way. But let's be real. The odds of that are about as slim as Jon Voight's accent ever making sense. The truth is, Anaconda only works when it's terrifying. When the snake feels like an unstoppable force of nature, when the jungle feels like a death trap, and when you're glued to the screen wondering who's going to get eaten next. So when you see the trailer and nostalgia tempts you, remember this. A giant snake movie that doesn't scare you isn't Anaconda. It's just a comedy in reptile drag. Maybe it'll surprise us, maybe it won't. But if I had to put money on it, I'd say this new Anaconda is going to suck harder than Jon Voight's accent in the first movie. And honestly, that's saying something.